That's not medicine, ma'am. Can't bring illegal drugs on this plane. Janet Morrison, a flight attendant, grabbed the inhaler from Maya, 16, whose hands were shaking. The cabin went quiet. Delta Flight 447 was waiting at JFK's gate, are already buckled up for the trip across the country to Los Angeles. There were tears in Maya's dark eyes as she clenched her chest and breathed quickly and shallowly. "Please," Maya whispered, her words barely audible over the hum of the plane engines. "Without it, I can't move." Janet put the inhaler up like it was proof in court. "After that, you'll say that this candy is treatment." People in first class were moving around a lot because of her voice carrying through the leather seats. Some people took out their phones. Maya's medical ID band caught the light from above as she desperately tried to get her medicine that had been taken away. Have you ever watched as someone's life was in danger while others filmed instead of helping? Jeanette, it had been 12 years since Morrison had worked for Delta Airlines. She was proud of keeping things in order, doing what she was supposed to do, and making sure everyone was safe. But as she looked at the kid in seat 23F, she was thinking about something else. Maya Thompson wasn't what Janet thought a normal first-class passenger would be like. She put her own hair back in a simple clip. The clothes she wore were from thrift stores, not high-end shops. Janet knew right away that Maya was in the wrong place when she first tried to sit in seat 2A. "Where did you get this?" The inhaler was waved again by Janet. "Your dealer." The charge hung in the repurposed air. Every second that went by, Maya's breathing got harder. With shaky hands, she pointed to her medical ID bracelet. "That's fake jewelry," Janet said. "Not..." Even looking at the medical information that was engraved on it, people in row 15 were going live on Instagram. One of them said, "I've seen it all before. I'm at Travelina, and you all need to see this discrimination right now." On Flight 4474, Delta, every word, move, and moment of Maya's shame were recorded on her phone. Maya tried to explain by taking deeper and deeper breaths. "I'm Maya Thompson. I'm 17. I have severe asthma. I'm traveling alone to my grandmother's funeral in Los Angeles." "Save the sob story," Janet said. She took a quick look at her watch. The gate staff was getting ready to close the plane's door when they heard the words 10 minutes until scheduled departure. Maya's phone rang over and over in her lap. The caller ID said Dad, but she couldn't answer because she was too busy trying to breathe. Her carry-on bag was in the overhead compartment. It had her early entry letter to MIT and expensive electronics that didn't fit with what Janet thought she knew about her. "Either this medicine goes in the trash," Janet said in a loud voice that other people in the car could hear, "or get off my plane." The threat made people in the cabin whisper. Some people in the coach craned their necks to see what it was taking place. The only sound coming from phones recording was the soft sound of phones in the first-class area. Maya's chest went up and down quickly. Even though the cabin was cool, she was sweating on her face. Anyone who knows about medicine could see the clear signs that an asthma attack was about to happen. But Janet only saw what she thought she would see. "You don't know who you're messing with," Maya whispered, her words barely making it out. Janet laughed coldly. "Right. I'm sure your people who were watching Tina's livestream picked up on the racist undertone right away." In the first few minutes, 500 people watched and comments poured in, most of them angry about what they were seeing. Maya's boarding pass was crumpled in her lap. Jeanette would have noticed something odd if she had looked closely. Maya was sitting in 23F in coach, but the pass said she was in seat 2A in first class. How had she gotten there? The captain's voice cracked over the noise. "Flight attendants, prepare for departure," or number 3, for pushback. Time was running out. Maya's health was quickly getting worse. Passengers 3 rows away could hear her wheezing. The older man in 20C, who had said he was a retired doctor during boarding, started to get up. "Stay seated, sir," Janet told him. "This is a crew matter." But Maya's phone kept buzzing. She was missing calls from all over the world. The same person tried to talk to her, but she was too focused on the burning feeling in her chest to hear. Janet raised the inhaler as if to address the whole cabin. "I don't know what kind of operation you think you're running, but this is a respectable airline." Maya's answer was cut short by a coughing fit that left her gasping. Her lips were starting to show the faintest blue tint that doctors no as a warning sign. The plane door stayed open, but Jeanette's in a third wave of breathing problems hit Maya, and she fumbled for her phone. Her father's number showed up on the screen. The other flight attendants watched nervously, clearly uncomfortable but unwilling to question their superior's authority. Tina's livestream had 10,000 viewers. Hashtag Delta discrimination was becoming popular, and major news outlets were starting to cover the story. Janet, on the other hand, had no idea that the storm was building around her actions. The screen again. This time she knew she had to answer, but the call went to voicemail. Maya's phone fell from her shaking hands as she had another coughing fit. Janet watched in frustration, not realizing that a medical emergency was happening right in front of her eyes. "Drama queen," Janet muttered, loud enough for the first-class passengers to hear. Several of them shifted uncomfortably, their phones. Now recording the confrontation, Maria Santos, the flight supervisor, out on the plane at Gator radio, was buzzing with important messages that she couldn't make out over the cabin noise. The messages were about priority passenger and corporate notification, but the words were broken up. "What's the situation?" Maria asked Janet quietly, hoping to stop whatever was getting worse. "Passenger in 23F trying to bring drugs on board," Janet replied with practiced authority. "She says it's an inhaler, but look at her." Maria looked at Maya, who was now leaning forward in her seat and struggling to catch her breath. The teen's state was clearly getting worse, but Janet's confidence seemed unwavering. "Did you check her medical records?" Maria asked. Janet laughed and said, "Fake bracelet, soba story about asthma. I've been doing this for 12 years. I know a con when I see one." At the same time, Tina's live stream went viral, with 50,000 people watching in real time. Comments poured in faster than anyone could read them. That Maya breathed was a hit, getting more attention on many platforms. Dr. Henry Chen, a retired doctor in 20, couldn't keep quiet any longer. "Excuse me, but that young woman is showing signs of severe respiratory distress. She needs immediate medical attention," he said. "Sir, please remain seated," Janet told him. "This is a crew safety issue." "This is a medical emergency, doctor," Chen insisted, his voice resonating with the authority of 40 years of experience as a doctor. "That girl needs her medication right now." Janet's jaw tightened. She couldn't back down now, because that would mean admitting she was wrong. It was clear that corporate policy said crew safety came before passenger comfort. That phrase sent a chill through the cabin. Passenger comfort. Maya was struggling to breathe, and her chest was rising and falling quickly and shallowly in ways that were clearly not normal. 2 TSA agents showed up at the plane door. Janet had called them during the first confrontation to ask them to come help. Police removed a passenger who was suspected of having drugs. They quickly made their way to Mia's row. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us," the lead agent said in a professional but firm tone. Mia tried to speak but could only wail. Her phone rang again and it was the same caller. "Dad," this time the sound seemed more urgent and insistent. She said, "She's not following the rules," Janet told the agents. "She said the inhaler was medicine and got angry when I took it away." Dr. Chen stood up. "Officers, I'm a doctor. This passenger is having a severe asthma attack. She's not disobeying." In medical distress, the agents looked back and forth between Janet and the doctor, their faces showing uncertainty. Maya's condition could no longer be ignored. Her breathing was labored, and her shirt was wet with sweat. "Without a prescription bottle, we have to side with the crew," the lead agent said. "Ma'am, if you can't show proper documentation for your medication," he said sincerely. Maya's phone rang again. The sound hit her like a warning because she wasn't getting enough oxygen. When her dad's face showed up on the screen, she changed the way she looked. She took a few ragged breaths and pressed the answer button. She told him, "Dad," in a whisper that was hard to hear. At Tina live stream. Caught the moment. 200,000 people were watching on various platforms at the same time. Delta's discrimination was making headlines across the country. The only sounds in the cabin were Maya's labored breathing and the low murmur of her phone conversation.
Passengers
Struggled to understand what was being said because Maya's voice was too weak to carry. Janet tapped her foot impatiently. The flight was now 15 minutes behind schedule, and ground crew were getting antsy. The plane had to push back from the gate to keep the day's flight schedule. "We don't have all day," Janet told the other passengers. "Either she shows the right paperwork or she leaves the plane." Maria Santos shook with worry. Something didn't seem right, but Janet was the senior flight attendant. Her boss expected her to back up her coworkers' decisions, even when she had doubts. Maya's phone call went on in hushed, desperate tones, and people around her could make out pieces of what she said. "They won't let me. Please help." In what sounded like Flight 447, as Janet pointed out, "You are not authorized to make that decision on this aircraft." Dr. Chen tried again. "I can confirm this is a legitimate medical device. I've seen thousands of inhalers in my career." The TSA agent stood awkwardly in the aisle. Maya's condition was getting worse right in front of their eyes, but protocol said they had to follow the crew's lead. Without official medical documentation, they had no choice but to treat the situation as if it were. One in the rows could see that Maya's breathing was getting shallower, and the blue tint around her lips was getting stronger. Dr. Chen's medical training begged him to step in, but TSA agents blocked his way. "This is crazy. Can't you see she's sick?" someone whispered from first class. Janet spun around. "Anyone who gets in the way of crew operations will be kicked off this plane." The threat stopped the whispers, but phones kept ringing. The live stream audience had grown so big that major news networks were now watching the situation live. Maya's phone call became more urgent. Her words were hard to understand, but her tone suggested desperation mixed with something else, maybe hope. Or was it something stronger? The plane door stayed open, but time was running out. Janet's ultimatum hung in the air like a sword. Maya had to decide whether to leave the plane without her life-saving medicine or find a way to get it. Maya's trembling finger moved decisively toward the answer button on her phone one last time. It was her dad calling, and she knew that whatever was about to happen, this call would change everything.
Ow.
As she took the call, the cabin noise seemed to fade, but her eyes suddenly became focused with new determination. "Dad," she gasped, her voice barely above a whisper but still getting through the quiet plane. "They won't let me use my inhaler." The response from the phone was immediate and clear, though muffled. Maya's face went from desperate to something like relief. She looked at Janet, then at the TSA agents, and then back at her phone. "He wants to talk to you," she said, holding out her phone to Janet. "On speaker?" Janet rolled her eyes really hard. "I'm not talking to you. Put me on speaker, Maya." The voice on the other end of the line was calm, authoritative, and had the clear tone of someone used to being obeyed. Even through the tiny speaker, it got people's attention. Maya's shaking finger found the speaker button. The voice filled the cabin with a professional, clear voice. "This is Captain Marcus Thompson, Delta Airlines employee number 7439, Chief of Flight Operations. To whom am I speaking?" Janet's face went pale as if she had seen a ghost. No one on the plane knew who Captain Marcus Thompson was, but everyone who worked for Delta did. He was in charge of more than 4,000 pilots and reported directly to the CEO. "Sir, this is Janet Morrison, flight attendant. Employee ID 47,291, she stuttered, losing her confidence. "There seems to be some confusion." "Jeanette Morrison, Captain." Thompson's voice rang clearly through the cabin. "You're currently denying my daughter access to her prescribed asthma medication. Is that correct?" People in the cabin screamed "daughter" and looked between Maya and the phone to see if they understood. Janet's mouth moved back and forth like a fish gasping for air, making no noise. Maya managed a small smile, the first she'd shown since getting on the plane. "Sir, I was following standard protocol for unverified medications." Janet tried to explain, but her voice lacked conviction. "Janet, there is no standard protocol for Denyon," Captain Thompson replied in a dangerously calm voice. "You are currently violating federal regulations under the Americans with Disabilities Act, Delta's medical accommodation policies, and basic human decency." The TSA agents exchanged glances. The situation had just gotten a lot more complicated. They were no longer dealing with a suspected drug possession case. They were now seeing real-time evidence of possible corporate negligence. Maria Santos stepped forward, her face pale. The situation was very serious.
Captain Thompson was a very
Important person in the airline business. Captain Thompson, sir, this is Maria Santos, flight supervisor. We can fix this right away. The medicine will be sent back to your daughter right away. It's late for immediate resolution, Maria, Captain, Thompson replied. This incident has been broadcast live to over 500,000 viewers. The damage is done. Tina's live stream had indeed gone viral. 800,000 people were watching on multiple platforms. And the hashtag Justice for Maya was trending around the world. Janet's hands were shaking as she held Maya's inhaler. The small plastic device that had seemed so insignificant before now felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. She looked around the cabin for the first time and saw the phones that were recording her every move, the disgusted faces of other passengers, and the growing realization that she had made a terrible mistake. Maya, are you okay? Captain Thompson asked. Maya wheezed, her breathing still very bad. Janet Morrison, Captain Thompson's voice went back to its professional tone. Return my daughter's medication right away, and then stay where you are. Be there in 18 minutes. Confusion shook the cabin, and people looked at each other with puzzled looks on their faces. How could Mia's father be there in 18 minutes if he was calling from somewhere else? Janet numbly handed the medicine back to Captain Thompson. Maya took the puffer back and used it right away. Her breathing started to get better, which showed that she was feeling better, but the attack had been very hard on her. Try it again. How can you be here in 18 minutes? From where are you calling? Captain Thompson's voice was joking for the first time. Janet, I'm calling from Terminal 4, Gate 23. Flight 773 from Denver just landed 12 minutes ago. I was on my way home when I got Maya's emergency text. Another shock hit the room when it was revealed that Maya's father wasn't calling from across the country. He was in the same airport, walking toward their gate right now. Dr. Chen, who had been watching the whole thing with growing satisfaction, finally spoke up. Young lady, how are you feeling now? She asked. Better. Thank you for trying to help. Maya's voice was stronger now, though it was still shaking from the shock. The phone call from Captain Thompson went on. Please stay calm and keep using your inhaler as needed. Janet Morrison, you are immediately relieved of duty. Maria Santos, you will make sure that my daughter gets the medical care she needs, and a formal apology from Delta Airlines. Career was ending in real time, seen by almost 1 million people because of her bias and bad judgment. Sir, please, Janet begged. I was just he didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't ask. Captain Thompson cut me off. You made assumptions based on my daughter's appearance, ignored her medical ID, disregarded a licensed doctor's assessment, and created a hostile environment that could have killed her. The cabin was so quiet that everyone could hear Maya's better, but still labored breathing. Passengers who had been recording now watched with a mix of satisfaction and shock as she watched someone's career fall apart in real time. Maya, said Captain Thompson, I'm at the jet bridge now. I'll be boarding in 60 seconds. The open door to the plane, which had been there during the argument, seemed to take on new meaning. Everyone looked toward it, waiting for the man who had just made their flight a viral sensation and a corporate crisis to arrive. Janet Morrison stood still in the aisle, still wearing her 12-year career was over after 18 minutes of discrimination. That would be shared millions of times on social media. Maya took another breath from her inhaler, and her color started to return to normal. She looked at the phone in her hand, then at Janet, and then at the door to the plane where her father would soon be arriving. Dad, she said into the phone. Thank you. Always, baby girl, came the reply. Now let's show these people what we're made of. There were clear footsteps on the jet bridge. Captain Marcus Thompson was about to board Flight 447, and things would never be the same again. The footsteps stopped at the door of the plane. Captain Marcus Thompson walked in wearing his full Delta uniform, and his presence immediately gripped everyone on board. At 6'3", with 25 years of aviation experience radiating from every move, he filled the doorway like a force of nature. The cabin fell into complete silence except for the steady sound of his footsteps. Even Maya's breathing, which was much better, sounded loud in the quiet. Captain Thompson slowly looked around the cabin, taking in the recording phones. The uncomfortable passengers, the TSA agents still standing awkwardly in the aisle, and finally his daughter in seat 23F was still pale, but breathing normally while holding her inhaler. "Maya," he said softly, his voice clear in the silence. How do you feel?" Dad asked. "Much better now," she said, her voice stronger than it had been in 30 minutes. Captain Thompson gave her a nod and then looked at Janet Morrison. That face was pale as she stood still in the aisle. One of the most important men in commercial aviation was about to look over her 12 years of service. Janet Morrison, with the work ID 47,291. Captain Thompson spoke up again, and his voice took on a more serious tone. "Do you really know how big of a deal what you did was?" It was quiet for a while as Janet's mouth moved, just before she spoke up. "Sir, I was following the rules to keep every traveler safe. Don't go." The order from Captain Thompson cut through her excuse like a knife. "Let me use facts, instead of excuses, to explain what you've actually done." He took out his phone, but not to make a call. Instead, he was looking at information he had brought up on his way to the gate. Delta Airlines makes $58.9 billion a year. In the airline business, the average settlement for a discrimination case is $2.3 million. Every year, the pay is $63,000. The numbers fell exactly as they should have. You might have cost this company more in 18 minutes than you will ever make in your whole life. The people on the train paid close attention. Many people were still recording, even though they knew they were seeing something that had never happened before in commercial flight. But the risk to money is not the most important thing. Captain Thompson went on, "You broke Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, the Americans with Disabilities Act, and Delta's own rules for medical accommodations, based on racial profiling, made the cabin hostile for a minor passenger, ignored medical records, and disregarded the professional opinion of a licensed physician." Dr. Chen nodded his head in agreement from his seat. Everything Captain Thompson said was legally correct and devastating. Sir Maria Santos nervously added, "We can fix this situation with proper apologies and accommodations." Captain Thompson then turned his attention to the flight supervisor. "Marissa," he said, "it's been seen live by over 1 million people and is trending on all major social networks. CNN, Fox News, and NBC have already picked up the story, so there's no stopping it." As if his words had summoned him, his phone rang, and the screen showed CEO Ed Bastian. Captain Thompson turned down the call and continued speaking to the cabin. "Janet, you have created what we call in corporate terms a career-limiting event," he said, his tone remaining eerily calm. The ultimatum hung in the air like smoke, and every phone in the cabin was recording this true-life case of corporate justice. Option 1. Resign right away with a neutral reference. You leave this plane right now, hand in your wings and badge, and never work for Delta Airlines again. But you might find work with another company eventually. Janet's breathing was getting almost as hard as Maya's had been earlier, but she didn't say anything, for very different reasons. Choice 2. Firing without cause, being banned from all major airlines for life, being responsible for any discrimination, lawsuit damages, and a federal civil rights violation on your employment record. Captain Thompson paused. Criminal charges. For endangering the welfare of a minor? The mention of criminal charges raised the stakes a lot for the passengers who had been entertained by the corporate drama. "You now have 30 seconds to decide," Captain Thompson said, checking his watch with military precision. Janet desperately looked around the cabin, as if she were looking for help somewhere. The other passengers stared back with expressions that ranged from disgust to pity. The TSA agents acted professionally neutral, but their body language showed they wanted to stay out of the situation. Janet said, her voice cracking. 15 seconds? Maya looked at the woman who had been staring at her. Maya felt an unexpected pang of sympathy for Janet, even though Janet had put her through a lot. But she didn't say anything because she knew this was about more than just getting back at Janet. "Time's up," Captain Thompson said. "What's your decision, Janet?" "Quit," Janet whispered, but it was hard to hear. "Please speak up for the record and for the passengers who saw your behavior." "I quit Delta Airlines," Janet said. "Effective." Immediately, Janet said, and her voice echoed through the cabin. Captain Thompson curtly nodded, badge and wings. Janet took off her flight attendant wings and employee badge with shaking hands. She handed them to Captain Thompson, who quickly pocketed them and said, "Security will escort you off this aircraft. You are no longer authorized to be on any Delta Airlines property." The TSA agents who had been called to remove Maya now found her. The irony wasn't lost on anyone there. As Janet reached the door, Captain Thompson gave her one last order. "Janet, before you leave Delta property, you will issue a public apology to my daughter." He told her this not for her career or job, but because a 17-year-old girl deserved basic human dignity and medical care. Janet turned around and said, "Maya, I'm sorry. I was wrong about everything. I hope you can forgive me." Junia looked at her father and then back at Janet. "I forgive you," she said quietly. "I hope you learned from this." Janet nodded and walked out of the plane door, ending her 12-year career because of 18 minutes of bias and bad judgment. Captain Thompson's phone rang again. It was CEO Ed Bastian calling for the third time. This time, Captain Thompson answered. "Ed, I'm handling the situation," he said, his voice echoing through the cabin. "Full corporate backing is requested and expected." The conversation was short and to the point. After hanging up the phone, Captain Thompson spoke to the whole cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, Delta Airlines formally apologizes for the treatment my daughter received today. This incident represents a failure of our training, our policies, and our values. It will not happen again." The sudden applause surprised everyone, even Captain Thompson. People were cheering not only for the apology, but also for the swift, decisive accountability they had just seen. "Your seat assignment was actually 2A in first class, Maya," Captain Thompson told his daughter. "Let's get you moved where you belong." While Maya was getting her things together, Dr. Chen came up to her and said, "Captain Thompson, your daughter handled herself with remarkable grace under impossible circumstances. You should be proud." "I am," Captain Thompson replied, helping Maya with her carry-on bag. "But I'm also angry that she had to." The live stream had now reached 1.2 million viewers. The story of Maya was going viral around the world, and major news outlets were getting ready to cover it in full. Janet Morrison's career destruction had become a case study in corporate responsibility and the power of social media. As Maya and her father walked toward first class, the cabin was still buzzing with excitement over what they had seen. Flight 447 had made history, and everyone there knew they had been a part of something never seen before. 2 hours later, Flight 447 finally landed. Maya sat in seat 2A, which was where she was originally assigned, with her father next to her in the captain's deadhead seat, which Delta had quickly set up. Her breathing was normal now, but the inhaler was still close by. The mood in the cabin had changed completely. Passengers who had been uncomfortable witnesses at first were now coming up to Maya with words of support. Sarah Chen, who had replaced Janet, stopped by their seats every few minutes to check on them. "Maya, I want you to know that what happened today was completely against everything Delta stands for," Sarah told her during one of her visits. "I've been with the company 8 years, and I've never seen anything like Janet's behavior." Maya smiled. "For the first time since getting on the plane, thank you. That means a lot." Captain Thompson had spent most of the flight on his phone, working with Delta's corporate headquarters. The airline was moving with unprecedented speed as he hung up the phone from yet another call. He told Maya, "Listen to this. Delta is making immediate policy changes based on what happened to you today." He pulled out his tablet and showed her the emergency corporate bulletin that was already being sent to all Delta employees around the world. It said that all flight attendants must complete 40 hours of medical device recognition training within 30 days. Any crew member who denies access to properly identified medical devices faces immediate termination. Maya read over the new rules with growing amazement. Her experience was already changing the airline industry as a whole. But wait, Captain Thompson said Delta is also launching a Metal Alert app integration with passenger profiles. When passengers check in, they can register their medical devices and conditions, and all crew members will be able to see this information right away. Mia's humiliation was caused by ignorance and assumptions that were addressed. No other passenger would have to go through what she had. "Dad, this is amazing," Maya said as she scrolled through the policy changes. "But what about other airlines?" Captain Thompson asked with satisfaction. American United and Southwest have all contacted Delta requesting copies of these new policies. Your 18 minutes of hell are going to protect thousands of passengers, Dr. Chen, who had been following the developments from his seat. He approached during the meal service and said, Maya, I want you to know that I've contacted the American Medical Association about what happened today. We're developing standardized medical identification protocols for all commercial aviation. Maya's story was starting to have an impact on more than just Delta and commercial aviation. It was also having an impact on the healthcare and civil rights communities. They stopped by their seats near the end of the trip to live stream the whole thing. Maya, my video has been seen over 15 million times, and the comments are amazing. People are sharing their own stories of discrimination, talking about change, and demanding accountability. What happened to Janet? Maya asked quietly. Last I heard, she was trying to get a job at a store in Queens, Tina answered. No airline will touch her. The video is the first thing that comes up when you search for her. Maya had a lot of different feelings about what happened to Janet. She thought justice had been done, but it still felt bad to take away someone's way of life. Maya, her father, said, sensing her mixed emotions, what happened to Janet was the result of her choices, not your actions. The way you dealt with things was better than most people would have. As Flight 447 started to descend into Los Angeles, Maya thought about how much her life had changed in a short time. 6 months after Flight 447, Maya Thompson testified before a congressional subcommittee on transportation and civil rights about discrimination in commercial aviation. The MIT freshman had become one of the most well-known voices in the fight for passenger rights. Implements, based on my experience, have cut medical discrimination complaints by 78% across Delta Airlines, Maya told the congressman. But the real victory isn't in the numbers. It's in the letters I get from parents whose kids no longer worry about flying with their medical devices. 12 major airlines had picked up Delta's Medical Alert app, and Janet Morrison's downfall had become a case study in corporate accountability that business schools teach. Captain Marcus Thompson was promoted to vice president of inclusive operations and was in charge of implementing similar changes across the entire airline industry. Maya's story had reached beyond aviation. Her calm response to racism, her father's strong action, and the ability of social media to hold people immediately accountable had led to changes in hospitals, schools, and stores all over the country. I learned something important that day. Maya continued her testimony. One brave person can change an entire industry, but only if they are willing to report wrongdoing and demand change. The Flight 447 video had been watched over 50 million times on all platforms. It was studied in law schools, played at diversity training seminars, and used as evidence in federal discrimination cases. Maya's 18 minutes of humiliation had led to lasting change. Dr. Chen, who now serves on a federal advisory panel for medical accommodation policies, often talked about Maya's case and his suggestions. The Transportation Security Administration adopted the standard medical identification protocols that were made after her incident and put them into place at airports across the country. Maya is now studying aerospace engineering at MIT with a focus on passenger safety systems. For her senior thesis, she created biometric monitoring systems that could automatically alert flight crews to passengers who were in medical distress. That power should protect the weak, not take advantage of them, Maya said at the end of her congressional testimony. When we see injustice, we can either report it or be involved in it. These real-life stories show us that one person's bravery can change the whole system. Maya's story is a touching example of how Black stories matter, how young voices can change industries, and how quiet strength can often get more done than loud anger. Leave your own experiences in the comments below. Stories like Maya's show that one person's actions can lead to long-lasting change. Click subscribe to see more life stories of smart, brave people fighting injustice. Share this video to make more people aware of the power of accountability in making social change.